Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, and we have a treat for you. We have two good friends of the channel, two people that I trust, respect, and do what lots of people are looking to do. This deep dive is all about out-of-state investing. Uh, Given that he's on the screen, we have the billionaire in the making. I see that shirt. Respect. Millennial Mike. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to be here. This is definitely, with our weekly Q&A sessions, a very highly requested topic to cover. So
Absolutely. And then we have a very good friend of the channel, and I must say the best voice I have ever heard, Mr. Brian Adamson. Let me just hear this guy talk. It's just awesome. How you doing, Brian?
I'm good, Mike. Thanks for having me back as usual, man.
Absolutely. And a little side note about Brian, he has a wonderful daughter who is house hacking. So much respect to her. How's that going for her?
Actually, she decided not to house hack.
No, she's not house hacking anymore.
She actually she moved out, she got an apartment and she leased the whole place out and she's making $1,000 a month net.
Oh, so she bought a house hack, lived in it, worked so well, she rented her room out. Now she's cashing checks, living by herself.
Absolutely.
I get it.
Absolutely. At 20 years old. Yeah.
Oh, she's got game. She's got game. She's making me look bad. Do me a favor, Brian, why don't you introduce the folks to the audience? You and I know each other really well. You've done several things for me on the channel, but tell folks what you are, your experience in the business, where you live today, and where you invest.
Sure. Brian Adamson, originally from Detroit. Been in Orlando for the last 11 years now. And but I've been investing in Detroit the last 16, predominantly single family for the first 14, 15 of those years, and then got into the commercial multifamily space a little over the last year and a half, I guess. And to date, have about 100 doors and counting, and did a lot of active income stuff, flipping and wholesaling, et cetera. That eventually, kind of pivoted into the education space and helping people, showing them those things I was doing as well. And so now we have an international mentorship program where we teach people how to invest remotely, which has become somewhat of a default strategy for me. And then, showing others how to do it successfully as well.
Yeah, I mean, Mike is right. I would actually say it's probably the most often question is about out-of-state investing. There are a lot of people that live in expensive parts of the world, like myself, that see the numbers, see the stories. But as I've often said, buying cheap, you can go broke buying cheap. So there's absolutely a right way and a wrong way to do this, as you and I have talked repeatedly. Folks, remember, this is for you. We're going to riff for about 20 minutes, which gives you 20 minutes to put in your questions. Go to the comment section or chat or whatever it's called here. Put in your questions there. I will go to that in about 20 minutes, and we will just go top down. The earlier you get the question in, the sooner it will get answered. So, Brian, thank you for that. Mm-hmm. Mike, what is your story? You started in your backyard, house hacking, and then you're like, damn it, can't get anything else. And you went somewhere else. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I got started in 2018 when I bought my first duplex here in the Seattle area, and I house hacked it. But then I said to myself, it's tough to save up a 20% down payment on a $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 property. So is there a way that I could invest in real estate in a market that makes a little bit more sense? And at that point, I had been against investing anywhere further than I felt comfortable driving. But luckily, due to some networking I did, some mentors that I met, I gained enough experience and trust in these folks to see what they were doing and then use their resources and copy what they were doing. And that's why I ended up investing in Gary, Indiana. I had never been there. I owned 3 houses for over a year and a half before I ever even set foot in the ground. But that does not mean I didn't extensively research the area and call and network and speak with so many people. There was a lot I did leading up to that. So sounds like in Brian's case, Brian, you lived and then moved away, but kept investing where you were from. And that's a great strategy. I tell people all the time, like, if you already know a market and have connections there, it's a good place for you to pick investing in. And in my case, I just picked a market based on the recommendations of others and got started. I have a total of 8 total properties, 10 units. So not nearly as successful as Brian or Mike here, but I hope to be like them one day. I think I'm in that midway point between someone who's starting out, then there's me, and then way down the line on that horizon where success is and the sunlight, that's where Mike and Brian are just kind of chilling.
You're doing just fine.
That's right. You get a lot more sleep than we do, I'm sure, at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's a couple of things when I think about these deep dive sessions that I want to get on the table first. And again, folks, put in your comments, your chats, your questions will be the predominant of this time. But my big caution with all real estate investing, out-of-state investing is no different than BRRRR or Airbnb arbitrage or syndication. Anytime something becomes so white hot, it becomes the easy button. I think it can lead to a lot of risk. And I think all three of us will acknowledge that a lot of people look to out-of-state investing for one reason. And that one reason is it's cheap. That bothers me. Right? Because again, you can go broke with cheap. You guys don't know how many times I have heard, right? I live in the Silicon Valley. It seems like every other damn car is a Tesla. You know how many times I've heard, oh, I could buy in Detroit or Gary, Indiana for less than the cost of my car. That doesn't make it a good deal. You could lose that money too. So Mike, you're on the screen. We'll go to you first and Brian next. How do you go deeper? Because again, spreadsheets can create bad decisions. How do you know Gary, Indiana is going to be the place that you want to put? Like, what did you hear? Maybe it was the network. Maybe it was all of that. Maybe that's the answer for you. But damn, I mean, how many people have bought something cheap and lost their ass?
Right.
So how did you know? I mean, how did you get comfortable? Tell me about that.
I was extremely resistant to investing in Gary, Indiana when I first heard about it, because anybody who can do a quick Google search can find out that it's 3 times the national poverty rate, that it's got 3 times the national crime rate, that it used to have a population of 200,000 people. And then thanks to deindustrialization with the NAFTA agreement in the 1970s, where we shipped all of our industrial jobs out of the country, it's got a population of 67,000. So how could you possibly invest in what's considered a failing city by nearly every single metric that there is? 1/3 of all houses in Gary are abandoned. How could anybody be successful there? And anybody who Googles it, it's been dubbed America's most miserable city. So
wow, what? This does not feel good at the moment.
No, and I did not want to invest there. I thought it was a bad idea. However, a friend of mine named Mark continued to encourage me to look into it. He was buying rentals there, and I watched him grow from his little, he had a portfolio of like 4 or 5 rentals, but then eventually he got up to 25 and put a track record of success. And he and I would chat all the time. He's always been a thorn in my side for things like, hey, what are you doing? When's your next investment? When are you buying your next property? And it just got difficult for me to say, Gary, Indiana sucks. It's not even worth looking at. So I started looking at it, and I started assessing the deals, and I started doing the daily work that Mike always talks about of creating a spreadsheet, figuring out what my cash on cash return and yield was, talking to real estate agents, talking to the turnkey provider that Michael Zuber actually recommended to Mark. That turnkey provider I bought my first property from, that Mark bought his first property from. The genesis of that was from Mike here. And so in reality, there's maybe a very small amount of exceptions, but probably every real estate market in the country, there are people who are successfully investing there and unsuccessfully investing there. And if you're willing to do the work, meet the right people, put in the time, energy, and effort, you can figure out how to be one of the people who will be successful and hopefully not just go broke buying cheap, as Mike said.
Yeah, very cool. So Brian, kind of the same question for you. Obviously, what part of Michigan? Is it Detroit? I forget.
Yeah, I'm in Detroit, and I'm going to try not to get too pigeonholed just on Detroit because, again, we've got students in 4 countries that invest remotely all over the state, sight unseen, right? And I've got students all throughout the states that invest in places that they don't live. So I think that, kind of the approach has to be, there's 2 things that jump out really quickly to me. Number one, action brings clarity, right? You're never going to win in the classroom. To your point, the spreadsheet is not going to get you the W. What will, though, is really honing in on identifying the market, utilizing bestplaces.net, which I shared, in the free course that we provided for your viewers, and understanding the dynamics and the makeup of that market, right? I think that people overcomplicate and undersimplify out-of-state investing versus in-state investing.
Oh, say that one more time. Overcomplicate and undersimplify?
Yeah, people overcomplicate and then oversimplify, I should say. I'm sorry. Overcomplicate out-of-state investing, and they oversimplify in-state investing. by thinking just because it's in your backyard and you can see it, that your risk is less. If you don't go in and from a prudent perspective, underwrite your deals and understand what your exposure is, just because it's in your backyard, you're still susceptible to all these things as you are from afar, right? If you don't have good management systems, if you don't have good checks and balances, and you don't have good accountability practices with holding contractors accountable, paying them in arrears, and doing all of these things from a basic blocking and tackling perspective, you're going to fail and crash and burn in either scenario. So, you know, you could stay in your backyard and be relegated to whatever looks that market gives you, and, you know, feel better just because, like, I live in Orlando, that, you know, I can invest by Disney and make 6% of my money. Or I can say, I'm gonna put that same time, energy, and effort into investing and making 6%. So why not go find a market more advantageous if I have the good systems and processes and practices in place, so I can go make 15, 20, 30, and maybe even 100% on that money.
Yeah. So again, this is, you know, again, it's not about the spreadsheet. I think spreadsheets get people in trouble. All right. Spreadsheets lie. Spreadsheets can be bent to tell any story you want them to. I have an opinion on this, but I won't share it until the end. But I'm going to ask you first, Brian, because you're on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
When you're an out-of-state investor, or out of country for this matter, and you're going to look at, pick an area, St. Louis, a new market, what's the most important relationship to have first? Or is there a most important for an investor? What do you think?
I think the realtor is probably the most important relationship initially, because from them, you'll start to make the other relationships that you need.
So they're like your hub.
They absolutely are. And they're typically the conduit to get you to your first property project manager. Okay, let me make sure I'm clarifying that. Not your property manager, but your project manager that could essentially run the project if there is in fact a rehab. That agent, as you go through that interviewing process, may be equipped enough to even be dual role in that regard, and be your agent as well as your boots on the ground initially, until you start to make more of those connections, because you have to replicate yourself in the marketplace.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so even for our students that work full time, that invest in their backyard, they're still kind of doing it remotely because they're not there, right? So these are systems and processes you can put in any environment. So that realtor, I think, is the strongest initial point of contact. And then from there, they'll kind of have the tentacles of the other pieces that you need by way of contractors, project managers, and then also maybe a property manager thereafter.
Yeah. So let me scratch that a little bit. Because again, there are lots of realtors in every market, different experience level, skill set. If you're again calling into, I'm just going to say St. Louis, because I think I said that earlier. How do you know a good realtor from a bad realtor? I mean, do you look for somebody that's been in the biz 10 years, or what are you looking for when you're kind of reaching out, making those initial calls? What are you looking for?
I'm looking for somebody that can become a partner with me, right? And I have all of our students cold call 20 to 30 realtors in any market that they want to work in.
I like it.
Don't stop when you get one. Cold call 20 to 30, complete the exercise, because you need to end up with 2 or 3. Yes. And then you can start to double down on the questioning and really understanding who may become a true ally and not just a transaction.
Yeah, I hope people are hearing that. I can't tell you how many times I hear from investors investing out of state in an area they've never been to. It always seems like they have the agent.
Right.
Like, how do you know? Well, we just click and blah, 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 whatever it is. I'm like, how many did you speak with? 3. I'm guessing there's more than 3 agents in that market, right? So I love that exercise, 20 to 30, and more importantly, don't stop. I think that's wise advice. Yeah.
Right.
All right, Mike, game time. What's the most important resource for you? It may be the same, maybe different. Don't know.
I completely understand why Brian has his opinion of a real estate agent and how that person can be like the nexus to everything else. Makes total sense to me. I always tell people that the number one most important person, in my opinion, that you could have in your out-of-state market is other investors that are currently investing successfully in that area, who aren't trying to sell you anything, who won't make a commission off of you, who have nothing but your best interest at heart. Now, the question that comes from that is, It's not a car at my house. The question that comes from that is, well, how do I meet these people? I don't live there. I don't have plans to go there. Even if I went there, I'm not going to be there long enough to develop relationships. And this is where virtual networking comes in. And it's something I've talked about a little more recently, but it's what we are doing right now. I have never met Michael Zuber in person. We speak multiple times a week and hang out for hours a week. He's one of my closest friends and mentors. All of that has been done because we first interacted in a Facebook group. Then I got interviewed on his channel. I interviewed him on my channel. We messaged back and forth for years. He introduced me to Mark. And then now we make videos together all the time. You can literally, and this is from me being a nerd, being raised playing World of Warcraft and Halo, you can make online friends playing video games that you hang out with every day for hours at a time. If I could do that in a dumb game like World of Warcraft when I was 15, I can make real friends in real life on something else I'm interested in just by watching real estate related videos. So my advice to people is, if you're interested in an out-of-state market, look up investing in that city, investing in Gary, Indiana, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Birmingham, Alabama. There's going to be people making videos, making Instagram posts that you can interact with. I have never met Mark Oshiro right here. However, financial firefighter is what he is called now on his newly started YouTube channel. Right here, he's got his video up over there. We've never met. We've chatted multiple times. Why? Because that's how virtual networking works. So if you can meet somebody who's successfully investing in another market you want to get into, pick their brain, copy and paste their success into your life. Use their people, use their systems. Take your deal that you're not sure about to them and ask their opinion, and know they're not going to try to rip you off. You're going to be very successful. But I do agree with Brian that that real estate agent can be that person who has the connections and the network. And if you want to find that one, you're probably going to have to speak to 30, because not every agent's going to be so well connected as to be able to point you in the right direction for all things.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things there. First, Brian is dead on, and I hear so many, and again, Brian, this is for out of state or in state or your backyard. You got to network more. I don't remember what rule is it. Hold on. It's rule number 3. Never stop networking. Meet at least 2 new people a week. And if you're going out of state, double that. Your network is going to save you. So what I would say to this question is, and this might be the real estate agent, this might be someone else, but I believe when you're investing out of state, you need one thing above all else. You need that one person who's willing to do a drive-by once a couple of weeks or months, and they're going to tell you the bad news fast. If you're only relying on people that you pay, you're going to get spun answers. You're going to get less urgency. I have never met a problem that got better with time. They always seem to get worse.
Amen.
Yeah. So this is what I tell people, because people are always like, well, how do I find that? This is what I say is if you die, is that person going to get on a plane and go to your funeral? If the answer is yes, because, hey, they were my college roommate, or I lived in the town, they're my cousin, whatever it is, then you found somebody that's going to tell you the truth. I hate relying on people I pay. I hate it. I despise it. I want people that tell me bad news fast. Brian, how's that feel?
I love it. I love it. I think that if you take what I said and, what Millennial Mike has said, as well as you, Zuber, and you put that all together, I think you got a great place to start.
Yeah, I think it's all of those. I will give you this, Brian. The most important long-term relationship, right, where you're going to get deals is the agent. But I got to tell you, man, I'm always about the downside. The upside will take care of itself. I need somebody that's going to protect my 6, right? That's going to protect the downside. So that's where I kind of go. I think the most operational focused, and folks, this will be my last question before we go to your chats or your questions. So please, if you have one, get them there. I think the most important day-to-day operator is the property manager, right? Who is the face to your tenants? So Brian, talk about the systems process. How do you interview property managers? Have you had to fire any? Again, my story is I fired the first 5. So clearly I sucked at interviewing them.
Yeah.
Because they always tell you what you want to hear. But tell me about the property manager systems process. How important is that relationship? All of that.
Yeah, I fired my first one. But he led me actually to my next one, which was great. And we actually put together various questions that we asked, right? Interview style questions, particularly, and I think the most important is probably what's their vacancy rate on their portfolio? The other one being, what's their maintenance cost, right? Because property management companies, while collecting your rent is a big part of the business, a big portion of their revenue comes from the maintenance costs and whatever their upcharge on those maintenance costs could be. So it's really good to go through that exercise of asking them and seeing if they'll be transparent and telling you, what they charge on top of whatever said maintenance costs, because you really need to factor that into your expenses, because if they're charging you 20-30% on top of the actual cost, you can end yourself in a bad situation really quick. So
cost plus doesn't work. Cost plus, ouch.
Absolutely. And you want everybody to make money, right? Don't be the investor also that says, well, you're charging me, to charge you 10%. I think that's relative. I think that's fair. And you want them to make money, because if everybody's making money, that's when everybody's happy. Business relationships only work when everybody is making money. So it's just a function of understanding how much money are you making? Does that fit my tolerance? And if so, maybe it's a good relationship.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Mike, how about you, property manager, day to day? What's going on?
Yeah, the property manager will make or break your out-of-state investing experience. It's possible they would make or break any investing experience unless you're self-managing. I can't remember which one of you guys said it. No, I think it was you, Mike. You said, you need somebody who's going to drive by and give you the bad news. If your property manager is not willing to tell you when things are suck or breaking down or need to be fixed, or tenants are doing this, that, or the other, if they're not willing to have that hard conversation with you, then you might have to have a hard conversation with them. No problem gets better with time, like Mike said. And so they will make or break your experience. They're going to be the expert on the landlord tenant laws. They're going to be the ones who handle the evictions for you, that process. They're going to be the ones who recommend rents. Obviously, you're going to be involved in that conversation and researching it, but nobody's going to know that market as well as them, hopefully, because they're probably managing significantly more properties than you own. It's your job to be an expert in your market, but you can't be an expert at all things and more experienced than everyone else. So at some point, you're going to have to figure out how to delegate and rely on other trusted professionals. And the number one, in my opinion, is going to be your property manager. They're so much more difficult to find a good one. In every out-of-state investing video I've watched or group I've talked with, everybody always struggles. I can't find a good property manager. I'm struggling to find a good property manager. I've seen people leave markets where they had great cash flowing deals on paper in their spreadsheets in Birmingham, Alabama, for example, because they couldn't find a property manager. They went through 3 of them. And after 2 years in the market, they said, screw it, I'm out. I'm going somewhere else where I have that better relationship. So yeah, they are extremely important on the list.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I'll say here. And again, folks, we're just about to go to your chat. So again, get them in there, and we're going to go top down. We'll just go until 10:30 my time. Two things I want to say here. First and foremost, property managers are like salespeople. For the last 5 years, maybe 8 years of my career, my responsibility was hiring salespeople, and property managers are the same thing. Why do I bring that up? They interview great. They all know what you want to hear. They know what you want to hear. So what I strongly suggest you do is you ask them questions they don't expect. The best question I have found is not tell me about the eviction process, because that's a law in the state or city that you live in, right? They can quote it without question. I like to talk about, how do you take care of the good tenants? I've asked that question so many different times, and most property managers stumble because nobody ever asked them about the good tenants. If you know anything about being a landlord, you lose money with turnover. Turnovers are expensive. And if you have high turnover, you're going to lose money. I don't care what the yield is on your deal. So think of a question that they're not expecting and see how they dance. But realize the second part of my question is, it is your responsibility. If this doesn't happen, it's not their problem, it's your problem. Expectation setting. You're the customer. You're cutting the check. You have the right to set expectations. You want a weekly report? Tell them. If it's a problem, they'll tell you. Go somewhere else. You want a Monday call at 9:15? Tell them. If they don't like it, go somewhere else. Your job is to set expectations and then manage to expectations. And then lastly, Brian brought this up. It's not about price. Everybody needs to eat. Don't go for the low cost provider because you're going to get, it's not going to end up well. Brian, any closing thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, I really like that, Mike. I personally, I may be a little more higher maintenance than most, particularly just because I feel like I'm bestowing a lot of responsibility in you and entrusting in you, and I need visibility to certain things and key metrics that I want to look at. And so I look at, I get a weekly report, and then I do a monthly huddle with the local property manager as well as the owner of the company. We just had ours 2 days ago, as a matter of fact. And we look at the numbers from the previous month. We look at the data. We start to strategize around, the systemic issues or problems that we may have. We look for the low-hanging fruit, but then we also talk about how do we incentivize the good paying tenants. We talk about how do we incentivize the good relationships that we may have with, certain organizations that we may be getting, Section 8 tenants from and things of that nature. Let's DoorDash a few meals this week. And, you have to think enterprise, right? And everybody's different, but that's at least been my philosophy. And it's also been favorable. It keeps the data fresh. It keeps our eyes looking at the right things, and it keeps us focused on the things that's going to make all of us more money. I told them the other day, I said, imagine we get on this monthly call and the only thing we got to talk about is maintenance.
That'd be great.
That's that, right?
Yeah.
And I got 200 doors with you, and so just you have to, everybody that's around you in your circle, you have to be able to cast vision with them. They have to feel a part of what you're doing. They have to be as invested in your business as you are, so that in your absence, you don't have to worry about what's happening. You know that they're going just as hard as if you were there.
Yeah. And I want to echo something. I don't consider any of that high maintenance. I get a daily report. It's automated, but we worked on it together. I get it's at 5:30 every day, Saturday, Sunday included. I get a daily report on what's going on. I can trend it to last month. I can compare all this stuff. The whole idea of this is set expectations early. If you, during the interview process, don't set the expectations and then they are surprised, that's on you, right? You're the one cutting the check, paying them their fees. Tell them what you want. If you want to call every Friday with the main PM and a monthly call with the owner, tell them up front. If they don't like it, they'll tell you, and you can go somewhere else. So communication is key. Procedures. Mike, kind of wrap about this. What are your expectations of your PM? Do you get weekly calls, monthly? What's going on with you? And then we'll go to the chat.
I don't do any type of weekly call or any type of monthly call. I don't think I'm quite large enough where I would potentially have enough issues boiling up. I can go a couple months at a time without even having one small repair, which is nice. I'm sure that's something
that's pretty nice. Yeah, I'm lucky to go 24 hours.
Yeah. My property manager manages 8 units for me, or 7 or 8 units for me. And yeah, there's times where there's just no issues. So, but my expectation is that if there is,
that doesn't suck. That's okay.
Right.
That's all right.
Right.
That's okay.
If there is an issue, if someone isn't paying, if someone's back, and with all the issues we had with COVID, and COVID assistance programs, yeah, we talked a lot more than we have been talking in the last couple of months. But ultimately, I think the way that you treat people will also help significantly. I think that it's extremely important that you always remain professional, that you never get angry, you do not get upset. If something is happening that shouldn't be happening, you need to address it quickly, but in an extremely professional manner. And then the number one piece of advice I would give would be make sure that you over compliment and thank them when they do things that you like. Thank you for reaching out, communicating this to me. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate all the hard work that you do for me. You did a fantastic job handling this remodel for me. I couldn't have done it without all your help. If you sing people's praises, they will subconsciously or consciously want to work harder for you. They're going to feel like, hey, I've done enough good things. Yeah, if something bad happens, I'm going to have a conversation with him. He's not going to blow up at me. Because I promise you blow up at somebody, it's just like with your kids. You scream at your kids. Are they going to want to tell you the next time they break something? No, they're going to try to hide it. So not to say that property managers are children, but it's just human psychology. Do your best to praise people and be as professional as possible when things aren't going well.
Yeah, I actually want to echo that, and we'll go to the chats. Again, this is a business. This is a relationship. Like Brian said when he opened it, everybody's got to eat, everybody's got to make money, but you have no idea how a thank you, a text, like if you have one main PM contact and you happen to know their birthday, $20 flowers. I mean, it's just, or whatever it is, you know, Uber Eats or whatever, like Brian, just these little things, a Christmas bonus, right? I like to do things off, like instead of a Christmas bonus, maybe I do a Thanksgiving bonus. I like to be different. I like to stand out. That's just how I do it. But again, find your thing. And yeah. All right, let's go to the chat and see
Can I
what,
share something really quick, Mike?
please.
Just to echo both of you guys' sentiment. You know, I told my property management company early on, I said, this is my standard. No news is bad news. Bad news is good news. Good news is great news.
Oh, I
like it.
The worst news is the news that I don't know. Never handcuff me from making my own decision as the business owner. Bad news is good news because there's always a solution to a problem. As long as we can communicate about it, we can fix it. And good news is great news, right? Yeah. And Millennial Mike just echoed that. He's like, I haven't talked to my PM in a couple of months. Well, I don't have any problems. So that's good news is great news.
Exactly. Very, very cool. I love all of this. This is why you two are the experts on this stuff. Let's go to the chats again, top down. Uwe, good morning. Alan, good morning. Chester, good morning. Chano, good morning. Mike, good morning. Anapan, good morning. Here we go. Chester, what are some of the considerations you'd factor into out-of-state markets, such as number of major employees, population size, growth, outlook, et cetera? So when you guys were looking at your markets, or maybe Brian, for you, because you have international students, I get this question and I frankly usually punt it. So we'll see what you do. How do you pick an out-of-state market, right? Mike went to Gary because his mentor did. You were initially in Detroit because you live there. You now have students. How do you help them find a market?
I encourage all of them to just find some gateway. It could be as simple as I got a cousin or an old college roommate, like whatever. You may have gone somewhere, you may have been driving through a particular. I got students in Detroit, two cousins, female cousins. They invest in Salisbury, North Carolina. They found that market because they had a cousin there, right? The cousin introduced them to an agent. They did their first 3 deals, not in the market they live in. They did their first 3 deals in Salisbury, North Carolina. So, you know, to couple that though, you absolutely got to drill into the data. I don't particularly get into the weeds as much as a lot of people do. For me, it's about what's the rent demand in the area? Will this thing cash flow? Do I have a good equity position? If my equity position fails, do I still have a good cash flow position? I'm more interested in the deal and the demand than I am in crime statistics and all those other things. I mean, if you go into urban communities, you're going to have crime. That's just the reality. But you could be missing out on a ton of activity, a ton of opportunity because you're focused on the wrong things.
I like that. How about you, Mike? What was it for you?
Yeah, so I kind of started off this way with, if you do a quick Google search of Detroit or, Gary, Indiana, you're going to see a lot of negative headlines, but someone's going to be successful in that area. So what do I rely on? Do I care about the number of major employees, population size, growth outlook? No, I didn't pay any attention to that. In fact, other than the fact that I realized Gary, Indiana is actually on a negative trajectory. So, but this is why it's important to have other professionals that are, other investors that you can go to, because if you ask me this question, that are successful. If Chester asks me this question about Gary, Indiana, I can give him a laundry list of very specific answers to his questions, but I can't tell you anything about any other market because I'm not the expert there. So this is why it's important to get experts. Do those things that you ask Chester matter? Maybe in some markets, they matter significantly more than others. In mine, Gary, Indiana is depopulating, but it's 45 minutes away from Chicago, which is the biggest city in the entire Midwest. There's a huge population that is looking to move further and further away from the expensive city, get nice, affordable housing and commute in, or virtually commute via Zoom like we're doing right now. And so these questions may be important for your market. They may not be. And I hate to have a cop out or punt it, but you got to find somebody in the area you're interested in to ask. And to Brian's point, yes, if you have local ties, you came from the city, friends live in the city, family, somebody that you trust in the city who has your best interest at heart, that's a great place to start. I'm from Grand Forks, North Dakota, but I didn't choose to invest there, even though it's in the Midwest and it's cheaper. I chose to invest somewhere else, but that was someplace I looked at because my friends and family still live there.
Yeah. So this is, again, back to my answer. And again, sometimes my opinions really piss people off. This might be one of them. I think there's a lot of people looking for the best markets to invest in. the best cheap markets to invest in. Folks, you should be looking at the best market for you to invest in. And this is back to my point. I would definitely, again, I go back to this all the time with out-of-state investing. Who is going to tell you the bad news? You have to protect the downside. If you went to college there, your college roommate, your cousin, whoever that is, I would look at those cities first. Stop Google searching best in market to invest in. If you don't know anybody there, you have a long road to hoe, and your chances are not very great. But if you have somebody that you can lean on, somebody that you like, that you can rap with, that's going to show up at your funeral, your chances of success go up. So again, I believe this whole notion of, hey, give me the 17 stats that tell you about a city is growing and builders permit and number of Fortune 500 companies and, population this or Gary, Indiana's on the bottom of most of that list. Detroit's probably not very high up, but you got the relationships, you trust the people, you build them. So again, what's the best? I always hate those lists. The best city. Well, it's the best city for you. And for me, it always starts with, who do you know? Who do you have relationships with? Who do you play World of Warcraft with? Maybe, I don't know. I mean, you build those relationships, maybe somebody in another area. So that's where I go with that question. So very cool. What's next? What does a good or great deal look like when you buy a turnkey investment? Actually, I don't know. So Brian, when you are buying, or maybe your students, are they buying fixers that they add sweat equity to? Are they buying turnkey? What's going on in your community?
So it's funny. Two of my students in Miami, they're buying their first deal in Cleveland, I think it is. And it's a duplex that was presented as a triplex. And so after they had the private inspection done, obviously it wasn't turnkey. There's a litany of things that need to be fixed, as well as the third unit probably wasn't permitted properly. So they need to underwrite that based off it being a duplex, right? Yeah. I say that to say this: there's no such thing as a turnkey investment. And if it was, then why aren't they renting it out? If it's really turnkey, why aren't they renting it out, making money? Why are they giving you a vacant asset, right? There's no such thing. When you talk about looking at a good deal, it's all about, are you buying below market? If you're buying at market, you're probably close to getting hosed. If you can get below market, to me, it's a good starting point of a potential good deal.
Yeah, I think there's lots of turnkey providers out there that's their business: buy junk, buy slumlord, and sell. I'm hoping most turnkey providers sell them full. Let me be very clear: buying a turnkey solution that's vacant on proposed rents, big fat no to me, not happening. Prove to me those rents. And oh, by the way, I don't want somebody moving in for 1 month. I want multiple months of rent collection for all of that. That's that. So Mike, I forget, did you buy turnkey? I think your first one might've been turnkey. And Gary?
The very first property was a turnkey property with a tenant in it that had been paying rent for 4 or 5 months at the time. And they're still with me to this day, 3 years later.
Never left. That's good. That works.
Right. To Brian's point, well, why are they selling it? In Gary, Indiana, they're picking up houses for $15,000, remodeling them for $15,000. And then,
cycling capital. Right.
You're up to 30 grand. They sold it to me for 60 with a tenant in it. So, it could have paid them cash flow, or they could have just doubled their money. So I think that is what their business model is. However, I have gone away from using turnkey providers because costs went up and prices went up. What they had to put into it versus then what they had to sell it for. I could actually find a better unit myself on the MLS remodeled by some wannabe flipper. Maybe I had to fix a couple of things that they didn't finish. And then put my own tenant in there, and I got to pick up a lot of that profit. So my first one was with a turnkey provider. My mentor bought several, but both of us and many others in my Gary, Indiana network investing group have stopped buying turnkeys because the combination of us becoming more experienced and just we could find better deals ourselves on the market. But yeah, I like the idea of starting with a turnkey. And the reason why. Your story, Mike, with your first property on Norris Drive, where those people moved in, they never paid rent again, they went through a divorce. Dion's story, where he did a handshake agreement with somebody and then had to, I don't remember if he evicted or not, but it was a lot of time not paying rent. There's so many stories of people who get started out and something bad happens. And that first property can make or break your investing experience. Not everybody has the mental fortitude to keep pushing on through the bad times. So I like to see people get a W, get a win right out the gate with their first property. So starting with a fixer up or burst strategy type project, that's a lot more risk. I think the best ways to get it started would be either to house hack, because you immediately feel the impact of having your living expenses reduced. House hacking, if you're starting investing. And I have friends who I've helped start investing by buying their first property in Gary while they still live with their parents. And what did I recommend? A fully remodeled property that's ready to put a tenant in day one. I will help you find and place the tenant, or already has a tenant in it paying rent and there's some history established, because they get that win out the gate, a good taste in their mouth, a good experience, and they can start to establish confidence so they can move forward and be better equipped to deal with problems.
Yeah, I'll kind of echo both of you guys. I think getting a W the first time is important. I don't, if people know my story with Norris Drive, there's very few people that would have done a second deal after that happened to us. I happen to be in a position where my wife is smarter than me, and she told me to keep going because I was ready to quit. So yeah, I like that, getting a W. I will say, turnkey providers, there was a time where they left meat on the bone. In the market we are in now, where deals are harder and harder to come by and supply chains are up, the deals are very, very skinny. I believe in doing the work, getting experience in creating your own W's. Yeah, I think turnkey today doesn't offer the margin of safety as it did 2 years ago. The market's just simply different.
I agree. Just to double click on that, Mike, if I can.
Please.
Right now, one of the things that's going on in Detroit's market over the last, 7 or 8 months is, since all the rent moratorium was uplifted, the SARA programs are going away. They're now deferring the initial court date for eviction by 90 days.
Oh, wow.
Then you come back 60 days later after that for the second court hearing. And then you got another 60 to 90 days before you get people out. So if you come in, you buy a perceived turnkey, that's a W. And just because they had good rent rolls on this turnkey investment, when all of a sudden you inherit this issue with this tenant that now gets to squat in your property for 8 or 9 months, when you could have put that time, energy, and effort into buying something below market, maybe getting into a quick turn, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 rehab, put your own tenant in there from day one that you vetted, and now you're more in a more advantageous scenario.
I hope people heard that story. Let me repeat it, Brian. Tell me if I got it wrong. You've got to know, especially turnkey providers today, you've got to know where the rent money came from. I could tell you, in my market of Fresno, California, there have been tenants that have been conditioned to have other people pay their rent, and they will never pay rent again.
Mm-hmm.
If you happen to get one of those listed and you get one of those tenants, you have 8 to 9 months of hell. So I would tell you, yeah, in this market, if you don't know the local rules, buy vacant. Absolutely. It's an interesting time. It won't always be this way. We just got a year to get through. I've told everybody 2023 is going to be messy. So yeah, I think that's great advice. All right, Roldan's question. Can you two, we'll play ping pong. Brian, you'll go one, Mike, you'll go one, I go one. So we'll get 3. Can you share a key implementation that you've seen proven to make out-of-state investing more efficient, even though it might be pricey? So what are some process procedures? What's the number one, Brian, to make it more efficient for you?
You got to have a solid, I call them project manager, i.e. boots on the ground. You got to have a solid boots on the ground. You got to have someone that can replicate you in that marketplace, that you can trust, that you can also hold accountable, that can also hold other parties accountable on your behalf.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in, Mike. You're going to go next, because that's exactly what I've said. Again, that is who can you communicate with? For me, it's about the bad news, good news, great news, all of that. It's who is that person? It's not about the process, not about the procedure, not about the property, not about this. Just who's going to be my boots on the ground that I trust.
Yeah.
So Mike, what's yours?
I was going to say, trying to figure out exactly what is the preferred form of communication for every person you deal with. Some people like to text, some people like to email, some people like a phone call. And if you're sending an email to the person who doesn't check their email because email wasn't around for the first 40 years of their life, that's not going to work. A phone call works for that person, versus my millennial, or actually maybe she's even Gen Z real estate agent who I can DM on Instagram and send her a text message. She's going to respond. But if I try to call her, or if I send her an email, she doesn't check it as frequently because people don't use email anymore. Instead, they use Instagram. So figuring out what the exact best point of communication is for that particular person, so you get your answers quickest. in a quickly evolving market you had to get offers in just a few hours. Time was of the essence until very recently. So that was a very important thing for me.
I like it. Chester, we'll go to Mike first because you're on screen. How much trust do you place in your property manager as a follow-up? How much leeway do you allow your property manager to manage terms of rental repairs, maintenances and repairs, anything under $100 without approval, for example?
Yeah, $150 is our mark. If it's over that, they got to consult with me. If it's under that, I don't even really care. I mean, they'll tell me about it, but like obviously get it done. And then of course, emergency fixes, pipe burst in the middle of the night. Obviously it needs to be handled, get it handled as quickly as possible. How much trust do I place in them? Again, because we answered this in the first part we talked about. They are the keystone of your investing experience. Like they're going to hold it all together. A good one makes or breaks your out-of-state investing experience.
Absolutely. Brian?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Is there a threshold that they can do the work without getting your approval?
Got it. Yeah, so it's $300. And I own predominantly, larger multifamily, so it just makes sense. We don't need to talk about every nut and bolt, but yeah, $300. And not only that, those guys really make it their business to just keep me in the loop about everything. And it's not even that I need to respond, but they'll send me an email. I get notifications from the property management software. They over communicate, and I'm fortunate for that.
Yeah. So for me, Chester, it's about that expectations day one. What is it for you? You own that. If it doesn't happen, that's on you. A lot of people get upset with property managers because they're not communicating the way you prefer or the frequency or the urgency. Have you told them? So for me, again, I've gone through 5 property managers. For a lot of my career, I had 2 side by side. It was the whole hit by bust strategy. Now I only have one. We've only had one for 5 years, probably maybe 7 years. And I trust my property manager with everything. But it's trust with verify, right? I know the founder of this company well. We've traveled together. I've been to his wedding, his kid's birthday. I mean, we're friends, but I still trust with verify. He doesn't handle my account, nor do I want him to. So again, trust but verify, even to this day. For me, the number is 500. Anything over $500, I want a picture in multiple bids. Anything under 500, I give them. They've earned that. It was 250 for the longest time. And today it's 500, but if they abuse that, trust me, it'll go back to 250 in a heartbeat. So yeah, it's on me to set expectations and to manage to expectations. So I like that. Harry, general question for the hosts, especially. Much as I do not like property management fees, usually in the world 8 to 10%, I see no way around investing where I know almost nobody. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine, I guess we'll ask it this way. Brian, since you're on screen, could you imagine self-managing even in your old stomping grounds, let alone a city you've never been to, without a PM?
No.
I mean, just flat out no, right?
It's just no. I mean, I self-managed when I started in 2006 for the first couple of years. And when you start getting calls about toilets on Christmas, it's like, who can I find to go give this 10% to really quick? It's crazy. And I got this saying of let the car washers wash the cars, right? Like there's just people that's better than me at that. And so while I
don't want to be good at that.
Yeah, right. I need to have enough working knowledge to hold them accountable, but let somebody else do that. I mean, and prime example was my daughter in Connecticut. When she got that property, she bought it remotely from Florida before she went back to college. We didn't know anybody there. And it started with grassroots with a realtor, to then we had to interview contractors and then, property manager thereafter. So no, I would not do it without a property manager.
No, me neither. How about you, Mike? Can you imagine Gary, Indiana, self-managing from Seattle?
Yeah, it can be very difficult for people who like to have control to give it up. I completely understand that. But you are a leader. You are going to lead your team. And like any good team, you cannot play all of the positions at once. I think, I'm a police officer, I'm a SWAT officer. We have negotiators, we have breachers, we have people who do entry, we have snipers, we have people who run technology. No one person can do all those things. So you have to have trusted individuals in those positions that you can rely on. And then you are playing chess. Your property manager is somebody that you have to cede a certain amount of control over to and trust them. That, again, like like Mike said about, quoting President Reagan with the old trust but verify. Yeah, you need to check their work. You need to make sure that they're doing a good job. But at some point, you kind of have to let them do their job. And maybe they're going to fail. And if so, you step in, you take corrective action. But you have to allow people on your team to play the game with you. And I hope that the people that I've chosen to be on my team, that we can pick up and we can win. And so far, that's what I've been doing. If I have to make adjustments, then I'll do so. That's on me to make the adjustments and pay attention to what the score is on the scoreboard. But I'm just moving players around.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say about this is it's absolutely technically possible to invest out of state and self-manage. But I will tell you this much. It will consume so much time, you will never get very big.
Yeah.
It will cap, your time commitment will cap how big you get. And frankly, your quality of life is going to suck when you get tenant calls on Christmas. No, thanks. Not for me. Couldn't imagine. All right, Sean, I'm hoping to get my first rental. I'm going to guess that's San Diego, but it could be South Dakota. I'm going to guess San Diego. Just a wild ass guess. But I'm very familiar with a city in Illinois where there are solid single family homes for a couple $100,000. I lived there for 20 years. Cool. Before moving to San Diego, I need to start my buy box to understand and gain the skill. Do you recommend I start with Illinois City or start closer to the area I know? And I'll answer this question because this is more how to learn your market. So generally speaking, if you don't know your market average yet, this is all new stuff for you. I would start learning in San Diego. Not that you're going to buy in San Diego, but you're going to build your skill. I've always equated it to playing golf. You're going to go to a local driving range and practice swinging your clubs. It's easiest to do in San Diego. Looking at projects, going to open houses, getting quotes from builders, networking, real estate meetups, all of that. It will take you 60 or 90 days to build this skill that you can then deploy on any golf course around the country. So for me, go to a local driving range, practice, practice, practice. Once you think you've got it down, go to any golf course you want in the country. This is how I see that question. Sean, Brian or Mike, we'll go to Brian first. Do you agree with that? Or would you just say, screw it, go to, the city?
Mike, I've never disagreed with you ever, I don't think. But, I'm totally biased on this one, only because I teach people every day how to do it remotely from day one, right? But
that's why you're here.
For someone that does not have a resource like myself and these gentlemen that's on this call, you absolutely should take Mike's counsel and start in your backyard, go get some reps in, develop the muscle memory, and then deploy those skills, in another place.
Yeah, you may have an advantage, right? Again, I haven't done this, Sean, to your question. You're kind of like Brian here, right? You have a stomping ground. You lived in the area, it 20 years. Maybe do you want to go back? That's something that's not in this comment, right? Are you okay going back, or do you burn too many bridges? You can't go back. I don't know. Maybe it makes sense. My opinion, backyard, muscle memory, live on the driving range. Once you feel good, go nuts. But yeah, I think Brian's right. Mike, how about you?
I think Brian is right. I think you could learn the skill out of state. I think you could learn the skill in state. You could just pick any market across the country and start learning that market. However, I do like Mike's point that it's going to feel a little more real to you. Plus you're going to double down by getting the skill of networking. If you're attending open houses and you're calling people that you can physically meet with in person, you start to learn how to judge their character. Not everybody has that skill. So there are definitely benefits to starting in your local market, but I agree with Brian. You could, and I help people buy their first rental out of state.
Yeah. All right. So people want to get nosy and dig into your numbers. Mike, since you're on screen, what was cash flow on your first Gary, Indiana property?
$264 a month in straight profit with like a 18% cash on cash return for how much I invested.
And what year was that?
My first out of state one was 2020.
Okay. Brian, one of your most recent deals, what was the cash flow like, net, and what was the cash on cash that you did?
I'll just use a more recent one. I closed a duplex 45 days ago, paid 74 grand for the thing. We put just shy of 20 grand into it, and we're getting $2,100 a month between both sides. So you put 20 grand down, you make 100% gross return in year one. This is no brainer.
Yeah. Do you get? I'm just curious. You get bank loans, non-QM loans, private money? How do you fund it?
Yeah, it just depends on the deal. A lot of my larger stuff, I'll use maybe a bridge plus private. And some of these smaller ones, I'm putting, I'm getting secondary market lending, and then I'll put my money into that deal and then refinance out of it. Or know that if I can't
You
refi.
had to.
The lending goes crazy. That, I mean, I'm making 100% in a year. It's a no-brainer.
There you go. I like it. A property manager that is willing to walk the property for you, even have it under contract. I guess what we're asking here, Mark, is yeah, I guess basically they're asking, how do you how do you get somebody to walk a property before it's under contract? Is that going to be probably the realtor in the beginning until you have doors with the property manager? Like basically, who do you ask for favors? I think that's really what the question is, Brian. As you're building this team out, as you're growing, you have nothing, right? You've got no doors yet. Who does you that favor? And maybe this is exactly why you say realtor is the number one step.
That realtor certainly is going to do you that favor. And
Absolutely.
to hold that realtor accountable, to make sure they're giving you the most objective lens to look through, have them take a ton of video. If you could FaceTime them, do that. Don't just rely on possibly strategic photos that you may receive. Get as much, real-time perspective as you possibly can when you send that person out.
I like it. Here's a question. We'll go to Mike on this one first. Do you look for a more aggressive yield, meaning bigger number, in markets with low appreciation? Is appreciation a part of any of your consideration, Mike?
No, I mean, clearly in Gary, until the appreciation that we all saw over the last couple of years, when Gary was a classic 3% per year type market, for good properties. Appreciation isn't even something that I factor in. It's great if it happens. If it doesn't, I mean, if there was true depreciation, I would be concerned about that. But I don't care about appreciation. I care about what the property will pay me, because the market can go up, down, or sideways. We could hit a major recession, but I know that rents are going to always continue to climb, and I care about getting renters who can pay consistently. And if I can guarantee that my rents are going to cover all my expenses and still pay me every month a little bonus at the end in profit, that's what is the number one thing that I care about. Appreciation is just icing on the cake.
Ryan, how about you?
Same. Cash flow is king, man. If it doesn't cash flow, I'm not interested. I know a lot of buyers that, there you go, got cash flow. I mean, I know a lot of people that play the equity game, they actually buy property, do the equity position. While that's great if it happens, the thing has to cash flow. And I saw that from investing back in 2007 and 8.
Yeah, you and I remember those times, right? There were a lot of people playing that appreciation game that got their asses spanked.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So no, yeah, appreciation. Again, I've been in this game 20 some odd years. I have no money in my deals because of appreciation. Believe me, I get it. It is not a consideration. It is all about, for me, it's all about yield, cash on cash, whatever you want to call it. So yeah. Do you feel it's required to look out of state property eventually?
To look at the physical property itself eventually.
Oh, there you go. That makes more sense to me.
No, I mean, in all actuality, what does putting your eyeballs on it actually do? Like, what's that do for you? Doesn't do. I mean, how does that better help you manage it or anything? Actually physically seeing it, like you've gained some new superpower to manage by. I can see Brian laughing at me. I think he agrees with me. But I mean, yeah, like I did finally go out there and meet some of these people in person and see a few of the properties that I owned, but I've bought more since then that I haven't seen. I didn't see them for the first year and a half that I owned them. But yeah, if I'm going to take a tax write-off as a trip to Chicago and have a good time and then go visit Gary, Indiana, sure. But I don't think it's necessary at all.
But you, Brian?
I couldn't agree more with Mike. I mean, let me ask you this question. Do you see the stocks you buy?
Yeah. Yeah, no, so I'm going to twist this a little bit. So I absolutely agree. You don't have to see it. I mean, most of us don't have the skills to know what we're even looking at, right? You could tell me the color of the house and probably the neighbor's house, but do you know anything about plumbing, foundation, termites? I mean, most of us don't have that skill. Unless you're a contractor and you have that, maybe it helps, maybe, I don't know. But I don't think you have to go see them. That said, I do want to step back. I personally believe you have to be willing to spend time. Let's talk about Gary, Indiana. If you're going to put most of your net worth in Gary, Indiana, get your ass on a plane and go out and spend some time there. Eventually, if you don't want to do it during the COVID shutdown, fine, but you've got to spend time there. That's where your net worth is. If you're not willing to go there, why should your money go there? That's my opinion on that. Mike, since you're on screen, what do you think?
Again,
disagree with me if you want.
I think we're right. I think that there is a benefit, and Brian here lived in Detroit before he started investing. I'm sure he's bought many properties that he's never seen before, but he does know the area. I think it's important to know the area. I think that traveling there, I mean, I did do it. I did decide to go travel there and try to learn more about Gary and Deanna. And I made a few videos about how it was a totally eye-opening experience. It was worse than I even thought in some areas. I think that knowledge is good. It also helped me see even more potential. But do I care specifically about one property that I'm picking? No, I don't. I couldn't care less. It doesn't affect me at all. But I do think it's good to know the area. And I would say that, yeah, you should be willing to invest in learning your area. And that may include traveling. Probably a good idea.
Yeah, I would just say that, and just so everyone knows, I think all of what we say is correct, right? It's just a matter of perspective. And I just want to make sure that I make everyone aware of that so they don't feel like there's one right answer or wrong answer. But I just got back from Detroit 2 nights ago, and I go there once every 3 weeks or so, but I'm there investing in my business, right? So I'm meeting with the property managers, taking my project manager out to lunch. Like I'm cultivating relationships that can further enhance my business in my absence. So looking at the property, to Millennial Mike's point, I mean, you see one, you see them all, kind of. I mean,
no, I agree with all that. But you
right,
want to know the city, the vibe, where other investors are going, where not to go. Did something change?
Absolutely. I want to learn more about the area in which I'm placing my money. To your point, Zuber, it's just, but it's a 6-unit apartment building. It just occurred to me this last trip in Detroit because I was talking to my property manager and she was talking about a couple of issues with tenants. I bought the thing a year and some change ago. I raised the private money to buy it. I've not since then refinanced it, got the private investors all their money back. I put a little bit in the bank. I've never been inside this place. It didn't occur to me until I was just having a conversation 2 days ago with my property manager. So you don't have to see them. Absolutely, you should have a vested interest in that market, in the area, and what's going on to some degree, I guess. But
yeah, I've bought plenty of property sight unseen. My eyes. I have team members there that I trust and built that DNA with. But again, I still go to Fresno, learn it. I'm seeing where other investors are placing money. Yeah, there's some big money going in, and you won't really see that unless you go spend some time there. So I like that. Let's talk about having a conversation to fire your property manager. Right, Brian, it sounds like you had to fire one. Tell us about that.
The interesting thing about firing people is that they really fire themselves. You just make it official. So, there was quite a few turn of events where I realized that the guy was in over his head. He was making a lot of broken promises. And while I kept giving him grace, he would continuously fumble over things that he said he was due that he couldn't. And if there's any deal breaker for me, is that you
absolutely
eventually, right, you're just lying to me. And whether that's intentional or not, that's the end result. And we just can't have a healthy business relationship in that regard. And so I just made the decision to sever ties at that point.
Yeah, having fired property managers a couple of times, it should never be a surprise.
Yeah.
Right. You communication expectations. It should never be a surprise. It shouldn't come from left field. Yeah. Mike, you haven't fired yet, right? You have the same one you've had the whole time. Yeah. So good for you. That's okay. Do you have minimum yield targets, Brian? Like you won't do a deal in Detroit unless it's X cash on cash?
15-18% minimum.
Yeah. So you're not doing a deal at 10. You're like, I'll just wait.
Yeah.
Mike, how about you? What's a minimum in Gary for you?
Hey, if you're doing the daily work and you're looking at your market every day, you should know what a good, what a bad, average, good, and great deal are. And on the One Rental at a Time family, we only do great deals right now. We started that 6-7 months ago. So for me, great deals are 18% or better cash on cash return. So that's what I do.
There you go. How do you finance today, Mike? The deals? That's the next question.
I've done traditional 20% down conventional mortgages. I've done 5% down conventional house hack owner occupied financing. I've done seller financing. I've paid all cash that I used when I withdrew from a HELOC on my primary residence to pay all cash doing the BRRRR strategy. I've done all sorts of different things.
Yeah. How about you, Brian? How do you finance your purchases over the last year or so?
Any way I can.
There you go.
No, but I mean, Mike hit the list. I mean, I've done all of those same things. I really enjoy private money on the larger assets. I form good partnerships and relationships to bring equity partners in. And on the smaller stuff, you know, HELOCs are great because you can deploy capital, possibly even pull that out if you understand the market and your equity position, but also understanding that if you got a HELOC at 4%, and if you're making 20-25% cash on cash, you got enough money to pay the debt service on the loan that you took out, as well as the HELOC, right? So it's just really understanding what are your returns, really underwriting deals to where, you know, you can really get diversified in your strategies.
Well, absolutely agree with all that. We're going to go a little fast because I do have a hard stop in 5 minutes. These guys got to go on with their day. Yeah, fire, flood, or blood. Take care of it. Otherwise, have a limit. Love that. 2023 is going to be messy. That's my word. Do you recommend a wait and see approach before buying? I recommend doing the work. It is, I hate these questions about timing the market. You guys think Reventure Consulting or any of these other crash channels will eventually be right? Do the work. Only do great deals. Own your future. Stop waiting for somebody to ring the bell. It's not going to happen. Do the work. I get these all the time. Let's see, what else do we got? Oh, finding deals. Let's close on this one. Brian, how do you find deals today? Because it's competitive.
Yeah. Honestly, so I bought 7 deals in the last 45 days or 60 days, right?
Okay.
From the MLS. I think one of them may have been off market. For me, it's not about finding deals, it's about making good deals. Like I've negotiated probably 20% off of every list price that I purchased in the last 45 days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, again, for me, the last 2 years or so, everything's been off market, right? I retired on MLS-based deals. I think there will be MLS-based deals that will come. Every market will come different, right? Maybe Detroit comes first, Fresno comes in 3 months. I think it will come everywhere. We are seeing record demand destruction. Rates went to 7 owner occ, 8 investor. That is going to crush demand. I do think we have a winter of crushing supply destruction as we have interest rate lock-in and all of this people have heard me talk about. But do the work, network, tell everybody your buy box, on market, off market, do the work. There are no excuses. The answer to finding deals is doing the work. Never stop doing the work. Brian, wrap it up. Tell us where people can find you. You put out amazing stuff. You're a part of my course. You're helping people around the world. Tell us about that. And Mike, will go to you next.
Yep. You guys can find me at Brian Adamson Official on Instagram. And you could go to my website, brianadamsonofficial.com as well.
Awesome, guys. And he is the man. He is helping people. He wouldn't be on this channel. He wouldn't be part of my course. He wouldn't be part of this deep dive if I didn't trust and respect him. Thanks, Brian, for all you do.
Thank you, Mike.
Mike, you got it. Mike, where can people find you?
Yeah, just if you Google or Instagram Millennial Mike, type it into YouTube or find me on Mike's channel here or in his course. I'm always lounging about somewhere.
Yeah. So, folks, my answer to outstate investing is absolutely possible. It absolutely can be done correctly. I will say, again, as I kind of opened up, I think too many people look at out-of-state investing as the get rich quick. If I hear one more person tell me it costs less than my Tesla, I'm going to pull my hair out. That doesn't mean it's a good deal. Just because a house is less than your car does not make it a good deal. You can go broke doing that. Do the work, build relationships, find that person. Out-of-state investing, to me, keys on somebody telling you the bad news. But it absolutely can be done. Brian, Mike have proven it, as many, many others have. So, folks, thank you for being a part of these deep dive. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful weekend. Brian, Mike, you're awesome. I appreciate you. Thank you for giving us this time on Saturday. Take care.
Thank you, man.